But today I'm going to talk to you about purpose. How many of you know 100% what your purpose is? You're wrong. Because your purpose is, I didn't mean to belittle anyone who thinks they know what their purpose is, but your purpose is actually unfolding all the time. And you're discovering more about your purpose each and every single day. God doesn't tell you exactly what your purpose is for your whole life, because then you don't have to have faith, right? So if God said one day you're going to, heal 1 billion people, then I might just sit back and say, well, we'll wait till that day, and then I don't do the work to create the character and the competency to facilitate the healing of 1 billion people. And so God doesn't show you, the entire future all at once. He gives you little nudges, and those nudges are synchronicities. They are downloads and revelations, where you get a word and you just know it's different. They're serendipity. You're like, I was just thinking about this person and they called me. These are the signs that we're in alignment. And the more in alignment you are, the more often these signs occur. Now, new people to spirituality will often, they'll call me up and they'll be like, I saw numbers 444222, and they're just like, numbers. And that just means that they're new to it, because as you become more experienced in spirituality, these things are commonplace. You're like, oh, there's another sign, go left. There's another sign, go left again. No, oh, we're going right today. Oh, we're going left today. Because the signs keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. The more in alignment you are and the more purified you are. And not that we don't have the same reverence and the same wow for each and every sign. More that you start to see the signs as opportunities to ground in action. Because when the sign is sent to you, it's for you to take an action. And when you take that action, another sign gets sent to you. And then you take another action. But if you just marvel at it and go, oh, wow, I'm so spiritual, look at all these signs coming my way. Well, you're missing the action that, is packaged within that sign. And so it might be that a hawk visits you, and that hawk is there to teach you something about higher elevation in your thinking and your spirituality. Or it might be that another sign is sent your way. An old friend shows up, an old relationship shows up, and it might be that old relationship is to test your conviction to the new way of life that you've determined that you're going to be a part of. And so each time the signs are sent to us to try to teach us something. And those signs help us get closer to our purpose. Now, to the people that said they knew what their purpose is, they were also right, because all of our purposes are exactly the same. And that is the sad part, because everybody thinks they have a unique purpose. That, oh, my purpose is different than everyone else's. It's not. We all have the exact same purpose. And that is to leave the world better than we found it. Right? That's it. We're not here to come and make the world worse. Imagine if every human being showed up and just made it worse. Well, about 5 or 6 billion of the almost 9 billion people are just showing up and making the world worse because of the systems and structures and the culture and the thinking that they have been conditioned to. Not because they were born that way, but rather because they were born in a system that said that pollution is okay, that that taking more than your fair share and not giving that back to the earth is okay. So part of Altar Call's mission is to teach people how to think differently. Because once you have the right philosophy and you have the right way of looking at life, looking at challenges, looking at obstacles, looking at the shadows that Tara taught us earlier, looking at nature and looking at friendship and looking at the way you conduct business and commerce. Once you have the right philosophy, life works much better. But with the wrong philosophy, it's very difficult. And I know that from personal experience. Now, what's the opposite of a person with purpose? Yesterday we talked about a person that has forgiveness, and the opposite of forgiveness was unforgiveness. And the opposite of purpose is aimlessness. Confusion. What's the opposite of purpose? No purpose? Lost. What do you think the benefits of having a purpose are? Vision? Motivation. What if I told you that all the Beverly Hills doctors that I drive by all the time that are selling you longevity and anti-aging had it all wrong? That if you just have purpose, you'll actually live longer. You'll be healthier. I get the chills just telling you this. You'll be healthier. That purpose is actually the single thing that determines how long you live and also determines how healthy you live. In fact, purpose is the cure of all cures for anxiety, for challenges, for grief. And if you think about it, when I went through my grieving period, I did not understand the purpose of the loss that I was enduring. I didn't understand. I didn't understand it because I was trained by not such good trainers that my mom was going to be somewhere out there, not right here. My mom would go to another place and that I would never see her again. It's like, no, I could see her every day. I'd never hear her again. No, I can hear my mom all the time. But I was taught that, there was something out there and that's where mom went after she transitioned and I lost something. And as Tara taught us yesterday, there's two things that affect society, right? Anger and grief. And anger turns to rage and grief turns to anger, which turns to rage. And I know because I was the most angry and rageful person as I was enduring that grief because I had the wrong perception on what was truly occurring around me. And once that changed, I then had a purpose to teach others what I had learned by way of my mother's elevation. And so now the worst day of my life, which was the day of my mother's transition, is now the best day of my life. I actually look forward to it. I know it's a day where I will connect to her deeply. I know it's a day where I will receive tremendous wisdom. But there's a lot of people that we mutually know that do not look forward to the anniversary of their loved ones who have transitioned. And it's because they have the wrong philosophy. And it's not their fault. They've just been taught the wrong way to look at this. And when we adopt a life to be pure and we make a commitment and we bring the Creator close to us, we're able to have communion with our transitioned loved ones. And we're able to see their transition as a divine lesson and as a part of our soul's journey. In fact, a strategic part of our journey to grow us and elevate us so that we could fulfill our soul's purpose. Now, there's been studies that show, so I've talked about all of the 5 major religions: Buddhism, Muslim faith, Judaism, Christianity, and Hinduism. All of them talk deeply about purpose. In fact, it could be said that the whole purpose of all 5 of those faiths is for a person to find purpose. That's all of the books, all of the lessons, the thousands of years worth of wisdom. If you think about the cumulative wisdom among all of the major faiths that have existed, the systems that have existed for humanity, it has all come down for one purpose, and that is for you to find your purpose. Isn't that interesting? Think about all of the work for thousands of years that's been done just so people will show up to this planet and find their purpose. All the books, all the classrooms, all the lectures, all the wars, all the tragedies, all the murders, all the pillaging and plundering, and all of this was to try to teach people how to find their purpose. And when a person's misguided in their purpose, they think their purpose is to, create war or force people to their way of thinking versus, finding their natural way of thinking, right? We've seen that as well, right? So a person misguided in their purpose can be a massive detriment. If they believe that their purpose is not one that is filled with love and peace and joy, they believe that their purpose is to terrorize or to create tyranny or evil, we see what happens with those individuals, right? So the opposite of purpose is, not having a purpose. But the detriment of having not figured out how to identify your purpose can be extreme. So think about this. Once again, we talked about forgiveness yesterday, and today we're talking about forgiveness. Just think about how important it is for us to teach our loved ones, our children, anybody we possibly can, how to discover their purpose. Now, some of you showed up here with a purpose, and let's say that purpose was to be a musician. But you showed up to a family that is filled with people that had the purpose of being accountants. And so mom and dad are accountants, and you showed up so that way you could learn to become a musician that actually valued money and accounting. but not to become an accountant. You came here to become a musician, and you wanted to learn from your parents that knew accounting, so that way you weren't a broke musician, you could become a successful and a prosperous musician, right? That might make sense, right? But then your parents say, over my dead body do you get into music? Because why? Who said that? Anybody else heard that? There's no money in music. Well, there actually is money in music, especially now with social media. If you came here in, say, 1980, 85, maybe there wasn't money in music, but you came here to make money in music in 2022, and now you can make music if all you have is a social media account and 1,000 people that pay you $100 a year, and now you make $100,000 a year as a musician with 1,000 true fans. And that's not impossible. Thomas?
Artists make money after they die.
Yeah, many of them do, right? And perhaps their purpose wasn't to make money while they were alive. When you really start to go deep into your purpose, and yesterday as I was having a conversation with one of our guests here, she had told me how she was called to our meditations, and that had sparked something inside of her that had her go deeper into her spirituality and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I realized, wow, like I didn't understand the true purpose of those meditations, but now I have a better understanding of it because I saw some of the impact from it. We don't really truly have an understanding of the actions that we take and the value of those actions in terms of long term, because those actions are developing an energy of their own. And eventually you might find out 10 years from now, wow, that book really did make an impact that I wrote. But when you launch the book, it might not look like it's making an impact at all. Or you might find out one person read your book that later went on to create a great charity, or become a great entrepreneur, or become a great politician. And it's just, your book was really meant for one person. But we were like, I'm a failure if that book is not a New York Times bestselling book and I don't make millions of dollars, right? It's like, no, the purpose was to write the book. It is up to God to determine who actually is going to receive what's in that book and to spread the good word of that book. And I use that as a reference because I've witnessed it in my own writing, where all of a sudden someone will reach out to me from China or from Indonesia that has read my book, and I'll realize, wow, I had no idea that the English words that I was writing were going to be translated into another language, that were going to wind up having a person in a foreign land join altar call and contribute to the movement. I had no idea what the true purpose of the book was. I just knew to be obedient and to write the book. And so that's how we discover our purpose. It's obedience. And every act of obedience is an act of spiritual warfare. See, even if you're called to pray, and you're called to pray at meals, and a friend joins you, and you say, I'm not going to pray. I don't know if they're spiritual or if they're going to vibe with this, right? We've all been there, right? Where we're like, I normally pray, but at this meal, I'm not going to because I'm not sure if it's cool enough, or if you're cool with it, or if we'll look weird in a restaurant praying together, right? But maybe being obedient and praying with that friend was going to remind somebody sitting across the table to pray as well. And God wanted you to pray with that friend, not for you or for that friend, but for that 9-year-old kid that's across the room that's going to say, I could pray at meals too, and maybe I should start doing that too. But we said, no, I'm too cool for this, or I don't want to take the risk of having this person feel uncomfortable, or I don't want to be uncomfortable. And so I'm not being obedient, and so I'm not going to fulfill my purpose. Does that make sense? Now, what purpose really is, and what it really does, is it makes life more meaningful. It creates deep meaning out of the mundane. When you're truly deeply rooted in your purpose, you're gonna be walking, you're gonna be like, there's a heart on that rock. And you're gonna be like, whew, this is a sign. You're gonna be like, what an amazing rock that I have. You're gonna put it in your pocket, and it's gonna be a souvenir. I'm not sharing my rock with anybody. You're gonna put it inside your pocket, and it turns the mundane into meaningful. It turns every conversation you have into an opportunity to grow and to learn. Now, what do you think stops people from fulfilling their purpose? Fear? Laziness? Procrastination? Disobedience. Doubt, subconscious belief systems. Judgment. And all of those things could be packaged into what? Well, character. Character. So each of us has a character, and that character has to be developed for us to truly fulfill our purpose. If we don't do the character development work, then we will not become competent, because the character development increases our competency. And then the more that we're competent, the more that we'll be in position for when that person shows up and says, I'd like you to open up a retreat center, or I'd like you to write a book with me, or I'd like you to be a part of a movie project, or I'd like you to be a part of a goodwill mission, to help foster kids. And because you have done the character work, you are in position, the assigned individual arrives, you overcome your fear, your procrastination, your doubt, your lack of obedience, and you take that action. And from that action, you further discover what your true purpose is. And then what happens? At the end of our days, if we've lived a life filled with meaning, meaningful relationships, meaningful work, meaningful contribution to humanity, meaningful moments, if we lived a life filled with meaning, what do you think happens when we're at the last couple of weeks of our journey here on earth? Peace, happiness, joyfulness, right? No fear. You're like, I did it. I got the chill. I fulfilled the mission. Now, sometimes we think, though, and I know this from personal experience, that we screwed up so much that we'll never get to the mission. And I'm here to tell you that's not the truth. In fact, your screwing up was happening to nudge you back on track so you can get to the mission. Because God knows your soul better than you. He knows your heart better than you know your heart. He knows exactly who you are, and He knows exactly how to nudge you, to send you the right mentors, the right wisdom, the right lessons, so that way you are constantly steered back on course. And I know that because I was flying off course at 100 miles an hour, and God took my hands off the wheel and said, you listen to me. I'm doing the driving. And I was like, but I still got to go get a drink every once in a while, God. And He's like, nope, that's not part of your new life. But I still want to, do this or do that. Nope, that's not part of your new life. Let me do the driving. Because I was so off course that I needed a massive course correction. And that's how spirituality works, is this concept called correction. Correction is when we're off course, when we're out of alignment, and we need a correction. And the correction can be a health scare. The correction can be scare with, my dog, right? That's a correction. The correction came to open up my heart, to have me vulnerably share, to be able to witness my own overthinking on the subject so that I could make the adjustments necessary to my character so that I could further grow as a leader right before your very eyes and my very eyes and my son's very eyes, right? So it's a correction that came. And these corrections are how we fully develop our character, which fully develops our competency. So the exercise that I want to give you now, though, is to think about this. Think about when you're 80 years old, what do you think the theme is that we will all share at 80 years old? When we're 80 years old, and God willing, we live to 120, but let's say we're 80 years old and we know that we only have a couple more weeks left. What do you think we're going to care about the most during those couple last weeks when we get to think about life? Time spent with loved ones? Or maybe you might say, like, I wish I would have spent more time with loved ones. What else? What other kind of wish I would haves do you think you'll say if you haven't done it right, if you haven't fulfilled the mission? Ooh, I wish I would have been that musician, right? Like I wish I had told my parents to, chata, and I would have played that saxophone, right? Wish I would have followed my heart. I wish I would have spent more time with my family. Now, how many entrepreneurs do you know that are out there beating their chests about, nobody works harder than me, Nobody works harder than me. I'm the most alpha male of alpha males, and you can't outwork me. At the cost of what? Do you think anybody's going to get to 80 and be like, thank God I worked harder than everybody else? Do you think they're going to say that? Thank God I put in more hours in the office than anybody else. You think that? And thank God I have $1 billion in the bank that I can leave to people so that they can go have fun in life, so that they can actually not work at all. Thank God I left that money behind for people to just go spend it and have fun with it because I wanted to just work harder than everybody else. Right? How many entrepreneurs you know that are going to get to 80 and they're going to say, I could have done life a little differently knowing what I know now? And why did I want to accumulate all of this stuff, taking resources out of the planet at a disproportionate rate to then accumulate wealth so that I can pass away and give it to someone who's not going to appreciate all the hard work that I did and not work nearly as hard as I did, right? I know that because I know many Generation 1 wealthy people, multi-billionaires, that'll tell me, like, I have no idea how I'm ever going to get my kid to appreciate what I'm handing down to him or her. And in fact, I know many Generation 2 young people that are plagued with the curse of having a Generation 1 parent. They're plagued with they never feel like they're good enough. They're plagued with a lack of self-worth. They're plagued with having been spoiled their entire lives. And many of them suffer some of the greatest existences. Although they might live in the biggest castles, they are empty and they are sad at the life that they've been gifted because they haven't been able to discover their purpose in the environment that they were raised in, because their environment didn't allow them to receive the tests and the challenges that were necessary for them to actually discover their purpose. And so as a result of that, these children suffer. Now, when you are not on track to fulfill your purpose, your soul will start to turn on you. It'll start to eat at you. You'll start to get sick. Many people will get illnesses, and the moment that they discover their purpose, the illness just goes away. But until then, they are chronically plagued with illness. And it's like the soul is saying, we are going to eat ourselves from the inside out until you get the message that you have a mission. And so you see chronic illness, you see depression, anxiety, you see anger and rage, you see all of these character attributes emerge and physical attributes emerge when a person is off mission and off purpose. So now I've given you some hints about how to discover your purpose, and that is that we have to leave the world a better place. And the goal is to simplify it, not to make it too complex. I'm making the world a better place by the work that I'm doing here at Altar Call. This is my soul's mission, and by leaving my son wisdom and books and journals and values that I've been so blessed to discover on my journey here, and hopefully he shares those with his children down the road and so forth, right? And so it's that simple. It's each and every single day you fulfill your purpose by making the world a better place than you found it, and by realizing that it's up to God to determine what the next step is in your journey. And discernment and obedience are the two ingredients that we must have to be able to know what the next step is. And so when God sends us the next step, we have to have the discernment and the obedience to take it, because sometimes that step is not the most glorious step. And when I work with entrepreneurs, oftentimes they'll be like, but I want to be a millionaire. And I'm like, okay, I'll tell you how. Start cleaning the floors. And they're like, but I want to drive a Ferrari. It's like, okay, here's how you do that. Be of service. Take out the trash. Do the dishes. And they're like, but that's not what I signed up for. That's not what I want to do. I'm like, no, I know for a fact that you need to learn service in order for you to become successful. And so if this season of your life is to learn service, then embrace it, right? This season isn't for me to take down millions, but if I get through the season of service correctly, then a season will emerge where I'm to bear the fruits of my efforts and to harvest from the service that I have learned and mastered. But oftentimes we're like, no, God, I'd like a different lesson, please. God's like, I know you perfectly. I know you inside and out. I know your character. I know your ancestry. I know your genetics. I know your biology. I know your weaknesses. I know everything. Here is the lesson for you today. And you're like, can I get another lesson, please? You're like, I'd like the lesson on how to spend $1 billion, not how to make it. Can we just skip to the lesson where I get to learn how to spend it as opposed to make it? It's like, no, we're in the season where we have to learn this lesson, and we don't get a new lesson until we've mastered the existing lesson. Now, purpose and meaning are very much one and the same. Once you have purpose, you have more meaning in your life, and once you have more meaning, you can discover more purpose, and your purpose unfolds. But we all know that our purpose is to serve. And we all know that there are a ton of problems that exist in humanity that we are well qualified to serve. And each and every single one of us has a trail of breadcrumbs that tell us what our purpose is. If you look back at the past, if you do the reflection work, if you look at the pattern of your life, you will see that there's a pattern that is hidden that'll show you exactly where you need to be right now to discover more and become more deeply rooted in your purpose. Each and every single one of us is on the exact same journey. None of us are any superior than the others. We all have the same exact journey, and if we build the character and the competency to the best of our ability, we'll make a gigantic impact. And so I know each of you are here because you have it on your heart to make an impact. You want to make a bigger impact. And I've given you the formula. Develop character, develop competency. Remind yourself of your obedience each and every single day. And any act of disobedience, you have to go deep on that. Try to remove that from your character. And have discernment. So you know when you're being divinely called or when you're being distracted by the enemy. Because there are forces at work that do not want to see you fulfill your mission. There is a dark energy, regardless of the religion or tradition that you are from. There is negative energy, and we all know that. Like, we see it all the time. People get angry, and all of a sudden everybody's a little upset, and that negative energy has a ripple effect. And then there's positive energy, and that positive energy has a ripple effect, right? And so regardless if you believe in spirituality, the science is out. Like, if a person in a bar starts to get into a fight, next thing you know, the whole bar erupts in a fight, and people engage in fighting that have never fought before and don't have that in their character because the negative energy just took them over. That's what happens when riots occur and things of that nature, right? Because we know negative energy, it affects us all, right? And positive energy affects us all. And in some traditions, they call that the opponent. Some traditions, they call that the enemy. Some traditions, they call that the devil. And then in, the light workers field, they call that, the negative energy. And so our purpose every single day is to overcome that negative energy, and discernment and obedience is the solution to do that. So as spiritual warriors, which is why we're here on this trip, our job is spiritual warfare. Against what? Against what? The negative energy. That person trying to pull you down. It's not that we're going to go fight them, it's that we're going to rise above them. That's what the spiritual warriors do. We don't lower our frequency to get into a feud. And every once in a while I do, and I go remind myself that's not the mission, right? We don't lower our frequency, we raise the vibration. And the more we raise our vibration, the more we pull others up with us. And that is the spiritual warrior way. That is the purpose of the spiritual warrior. And so I invite every single one of you to receive the identity of a spiritual warrior. And every act of obedience is an act of spiritual warfare. The simplest act of obedience, the simplest reminder to pray at mealtime, the simplest reminder to do acts of good and to do good deeds with no intention of all. The simplest actions that we take each and every single day are making the world a better place. And for those of you who are new to spirituality, and it takes you a great amount of effort to do those acts, you are actually more important to the mission of the spiritual warrior than those of us who don't have to put as much effort into the acts. Because your effort every single day, your effort in each and every single act is tenfold that of the righteous person. And so by you taking action each and every single day and putting a tremendous amount of effort to resist the temptations that come your way, the negativity that comes your way, if you have to put in a ton of effort, no, you're doing a ton of warfare. And we thank you because you are raising the elevation and the vibration and the consciousness of the entire planet each time you resist that temptation. And if it's hard for you to resist it, know that you're actually doing more spiritual warfare than the person that proudly says, oh, I don't have that problem. It's like, we got it all wrong. The people that brag, oh, I've never had an issue with alcohol. It's like, well, you've never done some spiritual warfare then, because if you've really had some serious temptations and some serious vices and some serious issues to overcome, and I know some of you share, you've done some spiritual warfare. And if you've never had those issues, then attack another element that needs to be attacked. There's another level of negativity that we could focus our energy on to help you rise up the planet. And it might be that you might not have those issues, so you are called in your purpose to clean up the environment. You might not have those issues, so you might be called in your purpose to help take care of the children in a better way, to help create greater educational curriculum, whatever that is. And so I wanted just to share with you in this beautiful setting, in this beautiful environment about purpose, so that each and every single one of you will become more deeply rooted in yours. And I thank you for this opportunity, and I love you so much. And now we're going to go back to the bus. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.